Next guests have spent a lot of time researching the evangelicals who seem more devoted to Donald Trump than some of the past teachings of the church. With us now, award-winning investigative reporter Sarah Posner. She's the author of the new book entitled Unholy: Why White Evangelicals Worship at the Altar of Donald Trump. Also with us, writer, podcaster, and filmmaker Ben Howe. His recent book is entitled The Immoral Majority: Why Evangelicals Chose Political Power over Christian Values. Ben, I was thinking about you when I saw Donald Trump the other day march over to St. John's, hold up a Bible like you'd never seen one before, and got there by having his attorney general clear out peaceful protesters with rubber bullets and spray and brute force. And you know, you and I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, spent most of our young lives there. And I just can't remember any part of the Gospels, any of those red letters that came anywhere close to advocating what we saw in front of our very eyes a few days ago.
Yeah, and I think for me, the most disappointing part is usually not what Trump himself does. I feel like at this point, I know who Trump is and what he's going to do. And generally speaking, he's selling Trump steaks, you know, everywhere he goes. And Christianity is the Trump steak for him right now. What's disappointing is the amount of people that I grew up with or went to church with who think that it's fantastic that a man can say and do the things that Donald Trump does, stand in front of a camera for 5 minutes, hold up a Bible, and allegedly this is the bravery we've all been waiting for. This is going to upend any negative views about Christianity, is that Donald Trump does that. They often compare him to biblical figures, sinful biblical figures that ended up being prophets, you know, like Jonah or David or whoever. But, you know, what they miss is that none of those men in the Bible were lauded for those bad things. They overcame them. They became someone better. They didn't just hold up the Bible, keep doing the same things that they were doing before, and then everybody celebrated the fact that they are their own man and can, you know, go out there and be a playboy and everything else while advocating for Christianity. It's not how it worked back then. It shouldn't be how it works now. And it's not that he can't be a sinful person. We're all sinful people. It's that it's celebrated. It's often cited as refreshing. I hear people say sometimes, you know, our Christians, a lot of Christians don't want to admit that they're voting for him because he obstructs their values, et cetera. The really disappointing thing is they don't want people to know that they love a lot of it. They love a lot of it. And when he's mean to anyone, when he's calling out the press in a demonic way, when he's using Christian leaders to spread a false gospel, they think it's great.
Sarah, it's Willie Geist. Your book sort of explores this alliance between Christian conservatives and President Trump. We've heard it 1,000 times when they're asked, why do you stand by President Trump, given everything you know about him, cheating on his wife with a porn star, not able to cite a Bible verse when asked, stating that he doesn't ever have to ask for forgiveness. They say we elected a president and not a saint. So how do you explain, as you write this book and you do your interviews and your investigations, that they stick with him through thick and thin?
They stick with him through thick and thin because they believe that he is defending them from the leftists or the anarchists or Antifa that they believe, for example, right now, are destroying the streets of America. So to them, he is protecting white Christian America from destruction. And so it doesn't matter that he has lied, sexually assaulted women, committed all kinds of political corruption, tear gassed protesters in Lafayette Park on Monday night. To them, he is heroic. To them, that was a sign of strength. So every time we have a huge, every day is a crisis in the Trump presidency, but every time we have a big crisis like impeachment or what's going on right now, everybody looks to some voices like Ben's, for example, or the Christianity Today editorial back in December that called for Trump's impeachment. And they think, oh, this is the moment that's going to change how white evangelicals view Trump, and they're going to turn on him. But that never comes to pass. And so you might hear a few people speak out against what Trump did on Monday. But in reality, the self-reinforcing bubble that white evangelicals exist in on social media, at church, with their other organizations that they subscribe to or belong to, in these circles, Trump is being portrayed as a strong figure who went over to the church to defend religious freedom.
Claire McCaskill's with us, and she has a question. Claire?
Sarah, I'm curious about Pat Robertson speaking out. I was struck by that. It is incredibly unusual that a strongly visible white evangelical leader is actually criticizing President Trump. Will that cause any wobble in this community? I mean, obviously, the fact that Donald Trump has never opened a Bible, you would think that would have some impact. But we're obviously disappointed it doesn't appear to have had any impact on this religious community. Will a leader like Robertson speaking out have any impact?
No, because when you look around and you see what other people are saying, like, for example, Franklin Graham took to Facebook this morning and said that he lamented the murder of George Floyd, but he said he was not offended by what Trump did on Monday. He was actually encouraged by it. And he said that the clergy who are criticizing Trump, particularly the Episcopal Diocese in Washington, whose church was the target of this, he said that they should be thanking him, not criticizing him. And so I think that is much more of the prevailing view right now, because Trump did, in the social media and media that evangelicals absorb, the protesters are often depicted as leftist outsiders that Trump is trying to protect American streets from. And so Trump is, like I said, portrayed as the defender of America in this view. And then he'll also do something like he did yesterday, which was sign an executive order on international religious freedom, which bounces everything back to something that he did to protect religious freedom, even though on Monday night he tear gassed clergy who were on the patio of St. John's, helping protesters, giving them water and snacks and so forth. So this is a very typical back and forth with Trump and his evangelical base to keep them in the supportive camp.
Right. All right, Sarah Posner, thank you so much. Her new book is Unholy.
Thank you, Joe. Why
White Evangelicals Worship at the Altar of Donald Trump. And Ben Howe, sorry we only had time for one question, but we want to get you back very soon. We're up against a hard break, but thank you as well for being with us. Willie, thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.